Nerdchachos, how's it going? So welcome to episode 5 of our Planet Zoo Let's Play, where we're building a zoo called Roars and Claws, and as you can see it's raining in the game again. So in the last episode we focused on this area here, where we were building our gift shop, we're building our tortoise habitats, and we moved them across from the very front as part of our original franchise park. And so between the episodes, as promised, I have put the enrichment items into the tortoise habitat, so they're now much happier. And so I'd forgotten to do that when I was building. And we built this nice little viewing area in the middle that you can come and see the two tortoises, and we explain why they're together in the previous episode and everything. You've got the keeper's hut behind, and then we had a look at the actual gift shop itself and how that's put together. And so it's like got this modern frontage with the pointy triangle roof, which I quite liked. It gives a bit of a variation to the modern architecture that we're using, and I'm hoping to pull that through the rest of the zoo as well. And so I've got some ideas on how I want to bring this forward, and I've been doing some research into layouts of zoos and how they're sort of like they're hubbed. So you have backstage areas and little hubs, and you have habitats that spring off of those hubs. Now I'm not necessarily talking central hub, but you have a hub, a little bit like we've got the backstage area here. You'd have something a little bit smaller that feeds multiple habitats in an area. So that's something that I want to replicate. So in this episode, I'm going to focus mainly on this front part of the zoo. I need to get this bit nailed off because it's then going to spike off into different habitats. But I've got loads and loads and loads of ideas on what I want to do. I know that I want giraffes and elephants over in this direction. I want the gharials over in this direction. Lions and stuff over in the back. But in order for all of that to come together, I need to work on this area. So the reflection pool is going to be somewhere that I'm going to focus on. And the water in this shouldn't be fast moving. It shouldn't be rapids like. It should be quite gentle ripples and everything. But it needs to be fed from somewhere. So I'm thinking that the water source is going to come from around here, and that's then going to be able to feed the gharial exhibit that I'm going to be doing. But that also then lends itself quite nicely into this area and what I'm going to put here. Now my gut instinct is telling me that something like flamingos should be in here, purely because it's the gentle water and the meandering sort of riverway and everything, and that's what they like. But the one thing I need to check, and I haven't done that research yet, so that might completely change my mind, is how they interact with slopes. Are they okay on hillsides? Do they like hillsides? And if they don't, then I'm going to need to rethink it. But my main focus for now is all about this viewpoint here. So we've started to plan it out. What's the viewpoint you can see from the main entrance? And so that's going to lead us into the first bit of the build. So here we go. Well, here we are with the first update, and every day indeed is a school day. So I've done some reading on flamingos, and apparently they actually live on the side of mountains in their natural habitats. They just have flat land in zoos just because of water levels and islands and stuff, and it's just easier to do. So that kind of gives me a little bit of food for thought for how I'm going to deal with this top area here. I actually do want to do a rather large flamingo habitat, and it's sort of spiraled out of control with this area, because I had this idea for the gharial exhibit in the sense that the path is going to continue, then come to an end, and then it's going to split off and go down where you can see it, and then come back round. But in order for me to be able to plan this pool area and then the water source that's going to feed it, I sort of needed to go all the way up this way to know how that's going to look and how the layout's going to be. So these are just the real rough outlines of where I want things to be, in terms of the gharial exhibit, in terms of what's now going to be the flamingo exhibit. And I don't know if this is going to be too big, so like I say, this is just a placeholder for now. But ultimately I needed to do that so that I could do this bit down here. So the main plan is to have this pool that's just going to be a nice calming reflective pool with a path that goes on the outside, ends up in a plaza area on the other side here. Here's, as promised, my sweeping pavement down, my path down. So this is my ramp way of getting down to the pool, as opposed to the steps way, the more direct steps way this way. And then I've got my water body at the top here, my lake that's going to be forming a slight waterfall that goes into the reflective pool and just gives that splashing sound and just gives a bit of depth to the area. And then the plan of attack was to have the flamingo habitat sort of in the middle here, maybe stretching along this way, and yeah, so it gives you something to look at on the other side as well. But I don't know if I want to extend this path slightly first, so I need to do some work on what the flamingo habitat would be. But this is the rough outline with where it is at the moment, and I think this is probably too far forward, but it needs to be that high for the path system I want, and also to allow enough of a smooth ramp to come up. I also need to allow space at the back to get the road for the access to the back end of the exhibit as well. So it's sort of, this is falling more functional than it would be how I would plan it. And then I just need to find a way of doing stuff in the middle. So yeah, that's the reflection pool right there. And this is just nice and simple. All I did was just did the square path plaza grid technique around the outside in a square. Lowered the terrain just enough that it doesn't go underneath the path, so it doesn't hit or go underneath the hitbox of the path, and then just filled it with water, and then raised the land at the other side, and then created the pool that way. So no trickery, not like the Slithers and Scales Nile monitor habitat. It's just nice and simple terrain work. Yeah, so that's it for this update. So I'll see you in the next one. Okay, so here we are about an hour later, and we've got a small update for you. And if you listen carefully, can you hear the sound of running water? But you can't see it. So it's a small update. I haven't really done massive amounts to this area, but what I've started to do is some of the finer details of how I wanted it to look. So I've started to fence off this top area, and I've just put a fence together using some beams and planks and stuff, and that's then running consistently across the whole top area here. I have also started the process of building the area outside the restaurant that we said would have seating area that looks down upon what will be our flamingo habitat. And I don't know at the moment if I'm going to go any further across, just because that obviously I'm going to leave that for the flamingo build. But I have just put the path in here ready for that build so that you can potentially come down and look down into the valley. But the main bit that I've done is this area here. So I wanted it to be a bit of a waterfall, and this took me a while to do because the water in game, when it comes to the special effects pieces, it moves very, very quickly. I didn't want it to be a quick waterfall. I wanted it to be more of a babbling brook, more of a smaller move, a slower move. So what I ended up doing is using the rapids splash special effects and putting it on an angle, and it works really, really well. It just gives this idea that you've got this water at the top that's all calm and all nice, and it's seeping through the rocks, and then it's heading down into the splash pool. And then heading underneath the bridge, and then the movement obviously would then stop as it hits the reflection pool. And then what I need to do is just put a drain in down this side, just to give it the fact that it's got a drainage, and then in real life this would then be pumped all the way back up to the Gargoyle exhibit, and it would flow back down again, so it would be in a constant cycle down. But I've also started to put some vegetation together in this area as well. So I've just used the common reeds just to flesh it out a little bit, and the soil around the lake. Just need to do some rock work and some more vegetation. And then this bit up here now has a wall, and so this is what I've always wanted for it to be walled off. So I just need to sort out the terrain textures along the side here. I'm just going to make this a little bit more earthy. Because the grass may not necessarily grow as far up to the wall as we may want, and then fill this in with foliage. And now I need to decide what I want to do with this bit, because originally I wanted it to be wooded, and I wanted it to be a bit of a wooded area. But I don't know if I'm going to change my mind and make this an exhibit, because it is big enough to. But the thing is, I don't know what to put in here. And I could put the llamas in here, or I could put something that's easy to look after, but then at the same time I don't want it to interact with the pool too much, because it's supposed to be a bit of a calming area. So yeah, I need to have a think about whether this is going to stay as a wooded area and just have it separate. I mean, on the actual landscape itself, it's not that much of a big area, so it would make sense given the size of the habitats that we're doing, which are far too big for realism anyway. This area here isn't actually that big a space to use as a wooded area. So I don't know. I'm going to need to have a play. But the other thing I've done is just started to place out where I want everything on the plaza. And so I was thinking, this is going to be a shop that's going to have facilities in. So I'll just lay down the path for now just to give it the square, but then I can take this out and make it what I want. And then what's going to be the lions or jaguars or jaguars or something along here around the back, I want it to come down. Now, this is now the thing that I have to consider, because we're now looking down on everything. If I start putting maintenance buildings and everything at the back here, I need to find a way of hiding them. And so I've had a look at places like Toronto Zoo, and they seem to do it really well, in the sense it's built on a hill, and it looks down, so you start high up on the hill, and as the zoo goes round you go down. Thanks Google Earth. Haven't actually been, but they hide their maintenance areas behind a hill, but then they do that naturally. There's a natural hill that goes back up, and the maintenance areas are behind it, so from the guest eye you can't see the maintenance buildings behind it, but from the it's dark, but from the top you can see it. So what I'm thinking of here is something very similar, but more forced and unnatural terrain changes. So it's going to come down to a point here, and then it's going to go back up to a hill, and then behind the hill it's going to dip back down again, and I'm going to put some kind of maintenance area behind it. And then I thought to myself, well, how am I going to have access? How the road's going to go in? So I'm going to bring this road, I think, round this way and into here. But that's for a later build, much later, in fact. I just wanted to get this viewpoint right first. So I'm really, really chuffed with how this. That's really loud. I should turn that off. Of how this is actually starting to look, in the sense that you come into the main plaza area and you walk through the loud music onto the main area, and now this is all fenced off. This is starting to look a lot more complete. It's not looking so bland. And then from here you'd have the view of the coral exhibit in the background, you'd have the flamingos here, you'd have vegetation and whatever hiding things, but the and then on the left you've got the tortoises and stuff, but the actual pièce de résistance is this bit where you just walk forward and you just look down upon the reflected pool. So in terms of guest eye, I'm really starting to like how this is starting to look, and it's starting to take a bit of a natural look down. It's not obvious that there's a hill there, but it's when you look either side and you see there's the ramp there and the steps there, suddenly you're like, oh, it is actually a hill. So that's the update for now, with the pool, and I will see you with the next update. Well, look what I managed to achieve in almost 2 hours worth of work. Are you impressed? No, I'm just joking. So that's just one bit. But what is amazing is how your foliage can really, really, really change your zoo, and really, really change the landscape, and how the whole thing feels. The fact that you've got all of this shadow casting down now, and just by placing a few trees. And I haven't padded this out this area yet, so it still needs to be finalised. It still needs to have its final foliage and everything put in, especially as I've now started to place these solar panels around, and because of the way the game works with the electricity system, it's done by locale rather than having a generator off-site and you wire it in, so you have to have them in situ. And so I'm going through the processes now of trying to hide them, but also not trying to hide them, like I did at the very front of the entrance in one of the previous episodes. But this is the point that I was trying to get to in terms of how I wanted this entrance area to feel, and it's this area here, as it goes dark as I show it off. So this is exactly what I wanted to achieve, this idea of the steps that are coming down through a foresty type area, the babbling waterfall, that's not it's not a hard waterfall, it's not a heavy waterfall, it's just flowing nicely over the rocks and just calming. And if you listen, you've got the sound of the water and you've got the sound of the birds, and it's all quite calming. But I love how this area is starting to come together with all of this vegetation. So where I live near a lake, it's an artificial lake, but this is pretty much how it's made up. It's all made up of really tall reeds and varying different plants and slight areas of exposed pieces of grass, just because it attracts all of the wildlife. So not only are we going to have all of the exhibit animals, and we're going to have habitat animals and everything, we're also going to have some of the wildlife that comes with this. So this would, in real life, attract things like dragonflies and it's a bit of a pest in the UK, but daddy long legs and all of like the nice insects that you would get. And so this area has come together really well. And I'm liking this view from down here, looking up, in the sense that it sort of hides the entrance, and you've got this shadowy type steps area. I haven't done this side yet at all, but the idea of this area is it's supposed to be a bit of a tranquil, forested area that's got the pool in the middle that looks down onto a plaza. And if you wanted to go and see some better animals, then you can go down to the end, and they're all over there. And there's me trying to hide the solar panels, and it works. Like it hides them relatively well. But yeah, they're still there. And then I've hidden them from guest view by placing information boards. It's the distraction technique. It's the idea of if you don't want a guest to see something, but it's obviously there, then distract them from it. So yeah, and then if you go up to the actual entrance area itself, now the view is looking just beautiful. I mean, look at that. It's just the foliage, I think, that finishes it off, and it really frames these trees and everything that we're putting around it. And I might need to move this lamp actually. It really frames this reflection pool idea that I wanted. Yeah, so it's really good. It's really good. And the other thing that I've done, I don't know if I've done it too much or not enough, and I haven't gone all the way up here. And like I say, I still need to work on all of this area. Um, is I've put some movement in the water. So these ripples here, this is caused by using the fountain splash turned upside down, of varying different sizes. So I've used the small, medium, and large, and it just gives the effect that this water is hitting against the rocks, and it's moving. And then I've used the rapids foam, and that's been used and pushed right back into the embankment, just so it gives enough of an image for it to look like it's moving, but not enough for it to look like it's rapid. And then opposite it or close to it, you then put these ripples and makes it look like the water's bouncing off. And then this bit here, particularly because the water would be sucked down the waterfall, right? So I just wanted the idea that this water, it's kind of got a current. It's meandering its way down to this sort of rock area, and then it's hitting the waterfall, heading down into the pool. And then underneath the pool, I've done the same effect with the pillars as well. Turned the fountain splash upside down, and it creates the image, or the illusion, if you like, that the water is hitting the pillar, and it's going around. It's the best you can do with the water effects that you've got. But ultimately, that's the look that I was going for with this area. So all that's really left to finish now is just this wooded area and also the shop area at the end, and then just do something with this area here. And I might reverse it and have a step area that comes from here down, but I might leave that for another day. So yeah, that's all for this update, and I'll see you on the next one. Okay, time for your next update. So I've been carried on working. We're about an hour down the line, and I started to work on the central plaza area at the end of the reflecting pool now. And I started to work on the restaurant building that's going to be. And I want it to be a smallish building. It's not supposed to be bustly. It's not supposed to be busy. It's not supposed to be noisy and loud. It's just supposed to be there. And I found a design that I quite liked from the Oregon Zoo, in this very square box building that's glass fronted. And so I started to borrow quite heavily from their design, in the sense that it's just this big glass frontage with these iron beams and this wooden beam. So I liked how that looks, and I think I'm going to develop that a little bit more, and bring it round here. But it's just the fact that it's consistent with all of the other design that we've done from the slanty roof area and up at the entrance. stuff like that. And also it looks out quite nicely onto the reflection pool, and it's facing the sun. So it just gives this ability to have the sun shining in with the shadow and the reflecting pool and everything. So yeah, I just thought I'd update that bit. I've also done some work on the reflecting pool, so we've now got that drain that I was talking about. So in real life it would be that the water would come from the top where the Gharial exhibit is going. Gharial exhibit is going to be, and it would flow down through the what will be the Flamingo exhibit into this lake area, down onto the waterfall, into the reflecting pool, and then out to the back, and then get sucked up through the back, and then up through the top again. I've also done a lot more work around the wooded area, and again, I've taken the inspiration from the lake that's just outside my place, with very reeded, very sort of varied on the reeds as well. So you've got the different colours of the reeds, and I know that these two don't necessarily live next door to each other in terms of the actual plant palette, but yeah, they are. Then I just added some colour in with these white ones as well, hidden away some of the facilities that I need, and I've also just done some work around here just to make sure that we've got some lights on the steps. Yeah, so I've also done a work along the top as well, so I've put the fence right across the top, and also some more facilities, benches and bins and the such, and then worked on the view as well. So the idea of this was that it's supposed to be a bit wooded, but also a bit open. It's supposed to have trees, but not be foresty, and it's supposed to be built up and mature in terms of plant life, but not overbearing. Because I like the way that the shadows fall from this angle, and I like the way that the sunlight dapples onto the grassland. So from the top here, it looks like it's quite open. There would be nothing stopping you from jumping over the fence and sunbathing or whatever. I wouldn't want you to do it in a zoo, but you can. But at the same time, from the reflecting pool, it's built up enough at the bottom that you don't even know that it's there. And the idea of this, the idea of this is that it's supposed to be quite tranquil. It's supposed to be quite calm. You can sit along the pool and just stare at the water rippling away. But I also saw this in theme parks as well. That especially when we went to Italy, and it was 44 degrees Celsius, which is I think is about 115 degrees Fahrenheit in old money. Correct me if I'm wrong. Willing to be corrected. But people were bathing in the pool or in like lakes and in ponds and stuff that they're not supposed to, but they are. And I thought, well, actually, that would make sense here if it was shallow enough and it didn't move fast, that you could actually just let people be in here doing what they need to do. I don't know where you would sit from a water containment point of view, and because it's coming from the exhibits, whether you would filter it at some point along the way down. I don't know how that would work in real life for contaminants and stuff, but yeah, I liked this idea that actually on a hot day you could sit beside the water and it's cooling. It's not a lake as such, it's just a body of water, but if you wanted to, you could jump in and you could have a splash around, and it's shallow enough that you're not gonna do yourself any damage. So yeah, I've liked that idea that this pool exists, and I've purposely not put fountains in. I did toy with the idea of having fountains just to make it move a little bit more, but no, this area needs to be tranquil. It needs to be calm. It needs to have that. I've put the fence along the side here as well, just to start to box this off. But I think this is going to be an exhibit along here at some point, and that's going to tie into the work that I'll be doing at the back in the back area here with lions and stuff. It's going to be an exhibit that would have one side hidden, like this side hidden. I don't know what's going to go there, but I want it to be an exhibit. I've also done some work at the top here as well, and I've just started the patio area, looking down into what will be the Flamingo exhibit. So from here you can see that the view is going to be very much down at the water, down into the flamingos, and you can just sort of chill out and enjoy the view of pink birds from here. But the other side, it then disappears, and so that's the whole intention, is that this is supposed to feel quite secluded. It's supposed to feel quite separate, and it also means as well that when we do put the flamingos in, we can have them come right up here, and I can put a fence in along here to stop them from escaping, and then I can have my facilities, the keeper hut sort of hidden up in this foliage here. So this is all done sort of by design with the guest eye in mind. And then I've just started to bring the fence down just to make sure that that's going to be fine. And so that's where we're at the moment. So hopefully the last update that we're going to do should have this area to a degree finished and done and dusted. So let's see what happens. All right, so here we are. We are done. And this is now the view that you get when you enter the zoo for the first time. And it's looking so good. There's the reflection portal at the bottom and the new plaza building that we've built with the restaurant and the facilities. And here is the lake and the river that we've got that's now running. So the lazy river that's running, and it heads to the waterfall around about here, and you can just hear it splashing down into the reflection pool, and it's nice and gentle, nice and calming, nice and lovely. It's all been fleshed out with all of this vegetation, mostly the reeds, and as I've said in previous updates, it's taken real life inspiration from the lake that I live nearby. A lot of these flowers and a lot of this sort of view comes through, and you do actually get a mix of the reeds. In between these updates, I went out and had a check, and you do actually get a mix of colours of reeds and colours of bushes and stuff. So actually, this is more realistic and more representative than I actually thought it was. And so I started to lay the foundations of where the flamingo habitat's going to be. So this is going to be the fence where it's going to stop. And I was keen to use a mesh fence so that the water could still flow, but the actual fence goes right down to the bed and back up again. So if I walk across towards Slithers and Scales, you can now see that we've got this fence that goes right across. And there's the restaurant, and we've now built the new picnic area that goes out onto like a bit of a wood decking, wood awning. That you will be able to look down at flamingos and everything, so that's good. And if we go the other way and we head towards our tortoises, come on, let's go through the trees. We head to the step area that's now complete and looking good. So this is the white wall that I've always wanted, and this has come out so well. It just frames off this stairway just so nicely, and I wanted to give this a change. I didn't want to use the stone for this one, and I know that we've been talking about consistency with the materials, but it felt like this had to be different because you're going into a relaxing area, so it's that white pure feeling. But I've also brought the railings through from the entrance for that consistency. So that's where you find the consistency. Plus the steps are the same as well. So you walk down the steps, like this, and you end up at the reflection pool. And it's just a beautiful sight. So you've got the waterfall that's coming from down here ever so slightly. I'm just walking through a wall, mate. And then you've got the dappling of the light coming through all of the trees, and it just sounds so good, and it's just so nicely finished off. So this brick has actually turned out quite nicely, creates a very clean, very crisp pool, and it's very square or very rectangle, and it's built up all in here, so you can't hear anything from the top of the hill. You can't see anything from the top of the hill. You are literally lost in the middle of this area. And as you keep walking down, you can't see the facility. Well, you can see the facilities, but it's not obvious. So they're sort of well hidden. A couple of education boards, and then you enter the new the new building. So this is what I've built in terms of a restaurant, and it's look at that at night time. Yeah, it's got like a little plaza area, like a patio area, and I just used the same stone floor that I did for Slithers and Scales, and the same plant pots and everything that we used for the restaurant at the top, just because again that's consistent. And then this is the finished building, very sort of glass, very open, very modern, very ultra modern. It's keeping on the very similar style of roof, but it's not slanted. It's got a bit of a variation that way. And if I just take you out a little bit, we've got 2 skylights, and I decided not to use the giraffe leaf on this one. I just wanted them to be plain, purely because this is plain. You know, there's no frills to it. It's just a very plain building, but it looks good. It looks better this way. It's very minimalist. Same with the inside. I think I want to do some decoration, but I don't know what I want to do with it yet, because I don't know what the area behind it is going to be and what the area to the side of it is going to be. So once I know that, I might then put some silhouettes of animals and stuff on here and the paw prints and whatever. But for now, it's just an ice cream shop and a milkshake shop with your information on the inside. And then from the inside, that's the view that you get of the reflection pool, and it's just great. It's all of the nature behind it. You don't know that there's a zoo as such. You can't hear any of the animals. It's just really peaceful. It's really lovely, and you can look back towards the waterfall. You can still hear the waterfall from here. And then all of this, I haven't done down here yet because this is going to be habitat, and I don't want to decorate this because I don't know if the path is staying. So, but you can walk along this way, and it's the same built-up thing. It's that consistently built-up foliage, the reeds and the white plants and the trees, with the shadows that are casting. And then that takes you this way, and then that leads back up the hill to where the flamingos are going to be, along here. And there's just that same fencing all along down here. So, to give you a breakdown of how things are built, as I normally do, because there is a little bit of trickery with some of this that I've done this time, so I just want to show you those. It's all of your normal sunk into the floor roofing for the patio area, your typical stock stuff for your seats and your benches. The roof here, it's just your iron girders, your wood beams, your arch shapes, and then these are your wooden beams, arch shapes, and your glass panels. So that's all very stock, very standard. These are your typical wood 4 height walls that you get, and then these are just panels. And I have to say I haven't done anything to the back of here yet because I don't know what the exhibits are going to be opposite. I just think it's going to be a lion, but I need to work out how it's going to look to know what this needs to be done. But I definitely wanted toilets in this area. It's quite important, and that was the thing. But I do need staff area down here as well. This is quite far from the vets. It's quite far from the staff room. It's quite far from the things that the staff need. And so the pool itself, that's just made up of a series of the brick walls, and then the brick pillars laid down on their side, just to make up that whole flat area here, and then it's just copied across. So nothing special. The actual drain itself, they're arch shapes, just to make it look like it's a grate, and because it's low to the ground and because it's almost below eye level, you can't really see that they go back. It just looks like it's a big grate, but it is just a big square. There's nothing to it. The trickery comes from the water. So if you didn't see it in the update before, these are the fountain splashes that are turned upside down, and the reason they're turned upside down is so that you don't have the splash up protruding through the water. It's going down into the ground, but it still leaves the ripple. So that looks really good because it makes it look like the water is moving. So there you go. It's like it's going down rather than up. And it makes it look like that water is moving, and I love that effect. And it's been most effective over here on the bridge. So you can see that where the pillars are, you've got the ripples. And I've actually moved this bridge, and I've not moved I should. Yes, you've got the ripples where the pillars are, and I've also used the foam from the rapids just to create a bit of movement. I think this is probably moving a bit too fast, but we can't slow it down, so it is what it is. It just has to be that way. And then the actual waterfall itself is, again, it's the rapids foam, but it's on an angle, and because it's on an angle, it flows down, so it looks like it's flowing off. The waterfall sections that we've got, the mid sections, top and bottom, too fast for what I wanted here. It was just like a torrent coming over the top, and that's not what I wanted. And these two are the normal fountain splashes, facing the right way, creates that ripple effect. And then up here, again, I've shown you how to do this, but just in case you skipped that bit, this is again the foam, and these are the upturned splashes, but it gives the water movement, and that's the important thing here. So if you do this now, it looks like the water's flowing, and it looks like it's ebbing around the rocks, and it looks like the current is hitting this rock and it's bouncing back, it's hitting this rock and bouncing back, and then along the reeds there's like this movement of the water. So I like that, really like that effect. And then all of the water is then moving towards where the waterfall would be, and then where the water is flowing down the rocks, you've got the bounce back as well. So I've just made sure that I built some of that in. I'm hoping it looks realistic. In my mind, it looks like it. It looks like it is. So I welcome what you guys might say about it. But in terms of the view, I think this is looking so beautiful. I wanted to keep this soil. I didn't want to make it concrete or anything. I felt like it was important for it to be a natural river, a natural trough. Particularly as we're going to be using it later on with where the flamingos are going to be. This I think is probably my favourite view, just because it's got the stairs, and you quite clearly see that there's the stairs, and it's quite clean and it's quite wide. You've got the waterfall, and you can see all of the foliage, but you can't see the park. You can't see the rest of the zoo. You can't see the shop. You can't see really the entranceway. It's just, yeah, it's so good. I think it's come out much better than I thought it was going to be, and I keep saying that, I know, but it just did. Just all came together suddenly. And then if you look across, you've just got all of the foliage, and it gives a bit of an effect of the foresty area, and the same the other side as well. But from here, I've kept the foliage and the trees a bit more sparse, so that you have peek throughs, because this side you can't see the tortoises even if you want to, because they're not tall enough. They're not a sight line, because you've got the fence and they're set back from the top of the hill. Whereas this side, you're going to be able to see the flamingos, because they're going to be on the hill, and the habitat's going to be almost coming down this way. So you're going to want to see them on the hill, in their pinkness. So I've kept a bit of a sight line clear so you can see through it. And then I think from behind as well, when these habitats are all set up and they're all as they should be, I think this is going to create quite a nice sight line. It's this modern in front, and then I want the more dangerous animals, I think, will be down here. These are going to be where you're going to find your lions, your tigers, your probably your bears and stuff like that. The ones you have to hide behind glass and put rocks up and have peaky holes, and yeah. So that's that. So this is how it looks from the whole zoo area. So we're starting to come together. And I didn't tell you, by the way, I bought aardvarks. I noticed that as part of the franchise, I was starting to somehow hemorrhage money, and I think it's because I transferred so many tortoises out. It just wasn't getting guests anymore. We just weren't attracting guests. So I bought a couple of aardvarks, and they're sitting there now. And I did toy with the idea of the aardvarks being in this area, but they just didn't fit. They just didn't feel right. It just felt like it lent itself more to a foresty area than it did anything else. And I like this blank space. I like its dead space for the zoo, because it also forces everybody out of the centre. And that's one thing I've noticed when I've been building parks in Planet Coaster and previous zoos. If you put stuff in the middle, people will congregate there, and they don't go and investigate the rest of the zoo. Whereas if you've pretty much got nothing there, they've got to go elsewhere. And then they all just use this area if they're passing through. Bit of a wheel and spoke design. So that's where we're going. And then this is the entrance area. As you walk through the loud noisiness. Let me go back. Do that. And you just go right back. So you're going to be able to walk up the stairs and click through the stairs if you want. Go grab your tickets. Go grab what you need from the information place. Toilet if you need to. Walk through the entrance, and you come into the welcome sign with your fountains. Mechanics just walked through, and then you come up this way, and you just see that. I mean, how good is that? It just looks beautiful. I can go left to the tortoises and to the gift shop. I can go right to the restaurant and Slithers Scales, and then eventually the girls and the flamingos. So that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for coming along for the ride. And of course, if you want to know when episode 6 goes out, then you know what to do. Press that subscribe button. Or you can leave a comment down below, leave a like, and let me know. I'm always active and happy to chat. And if you think I've done something wrong, or you want to know how I've done something, let me know in the bottom, so I can tell you. I can build it into future episodes. But otherwise, thank you so much. Look after yourselves, everybody, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care.